I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC.
Welcome. This is Financial Literacy with TC. I am your host, TC. It's another week of Financial Literacy with TC. So I always want to thank you guys. There's so many podcasts out in the world you guys could have chosen to listen to, but you always choose to come back and listen to mine, and I'm always appreciative of that. Today, I'm so excited to have my guest today. This woman means so much to me. You guys don't even know. So before I introduce her, I just want to go over how significant and how important this individual is, because I'm honored that she's been able to grace me with her presence on Financial Literacy with TC. So if you guys can bear with me, I'm going to read down a little bit of her experience and just who she is. So she is a former VP at Brentwood Bank. She's been a business development manager for PNC. She's been a branch manager for First National Bank. She's also been an executive director for the South Hills Chamber. She was previously, and this role is dearly important to me, she was the program instructor and for Energy Innovation Center, which is the BankWorks program, which was an 8-week program that did an introductory into banking, which I graduated from. And she she also is currently a business owner for Impart Clarity.
Mm-hmm.
My apologies. Impart Clarity, which, and let me take my time with this because I want to emphasize the significance of what she does with her business. She's a certified narcissistic trauma informed coach,
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to helping individuals overcome personal and relationship challenges using positive psychology,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, and hypnotherapy, brain spotting, and somatic coaching to support healing from narcissistic and emotional and financial abuse, which is significant because that's what we're talking about today on Financial Literacy with TC. And before we get into, Tanya Bashor, I guess, she's also recently just been named the Deputy Director of Career Links. So I want to say congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But before I let Tanya say hello to you guys, I just want to make sure that you hit that subscribe button and definitely drop some comments in the chat. We're getting into the last week of Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm so excited to have her on because this topic is so deep and near to my heart. She is a mother. She's a wife. She's a phenomenal person in the community. She just cares about people so much. She's a mentor to me. I follow everything she does because she genuinely has a natural ability to want to help people in the community. It's kind of something I've always admired and wanted to emulate. So with all that being said, Tanya Bashor, thank you for joining me.
Holy cow, what an introduction. Thank you so much,
I was
Tyler.
trying to make it through without getting emotional and teary-eyed, because obviously your achievements are so wonderful, but I really want people to understand the type of character and person you are, because unless they know you, and many people, but unless they know you personally, that doesn't always translate into, the audience. So hopefully they can see how much, you really mean to me, and then how significant of a person you are. So.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I remember the days when you used to come to my BankWorks class, and at the time you were managing at Dunkin' Donuts overnight.
Yes.
And you would come in from an 8-hour, 9-hour, sometimes 10-hour shift, sometimes with donuts too. So that was always a good thing.
Right.
But with lots of coffee, and you would just pace the back of the classroom just to
Right.
stay awake. And I'm like, this guy is going far.
Right.
Because for you to go through that and to stay awake and to do that for 8 weeks and to commit to that, it speaks a lot to who you are too.
Yes, I appreciate that.
So, you know, kudos to you for graduating from the Bankworks program. Kudos to you for your career in banking so far.
Yes.
And for this podcast. What you're doing is an incredible thing for this community. And I am super excited to be on your show today.
Thank you. It means the world hearing you say that because, like I said, I try to emulate people I look up to. Obviously, what you do is monumental from the standpoint when we're talking about mental health and how, from a societal standpoint, we're really starting to get into how significant that is. And in my own little way, I wanted to make sure financial literacy is starting to gain traction and become more significant in the world. So us merging those two things together. And again, I want to emphasize to the audience that, you know, financial abuse and recovery is what today's topic is going to be. And we have someone who's done her due diligence, who's taken this very seriously and passionately. And we're going to just dive into what that looks like and get a lot of tips and information that many people, especially in the Black community, because that's my target base. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, they get it from a reputable source, someone who I know is, you know, you care about people no matter what race or decree.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so I was like, oh my God, when you reached out, I was so excited.
This is prevalent, I think, in all communities, but I have seen so much of it in my teaching in Bankworks. And I've seen, you know, a lot of women and men too, that it's not just that, you know, men abuse women can abuse men too. And I think that's not talked about enough as well. However, but I've seen a lot of it happening, and I've seen the struggles and the pain and, you know, what can happen to someone's self-esteem when they go through that. So I don't know if you're even aware of this because you've never really known a lot about my personal life. We've only known each other on a professional level. But I was married for a really long time, and I had to refinance my house 3 times in the 20 years that we were married.
And I know how,
because everything, all my credit cards kept getting jacked up, refusing to take care of kids so I could go to work. Like there's a lot of things that come into play with financial abuse, and it isn't just about, you know, if you and I are married, you're the one spending all the money and giving me $10 a week to spend for pocket money. It is beyond that. You know, financial abuse can be many different things. It can be you controlling what the other person spends. It can be you making it really hard for that other person to earn their own money, earn their own income. You know, looking at different ways of trying to sabotage that person's success, like not taking care of kids if there were kids in the picture, so that person has to stay home and watch the children. It can mean you know, charging up the other person's credit card or using their good credit and then trashing it. And so financial abuse can come in many, many different forms. It can also be, you know, somebody forcing their partner to take out a loan. It can be forcing that person to file unemployment or disability or doing something illegal that they don't want to do, that is to do with money. And it can also be financial abuse can also be when that person is the only person earning money, whether it's legally or illegally, controlling the situation at home that the relationship is in, to the point where that person is so dependent on that other person that's earning the money that they may not eat. They may not have a roof over their head. They may not be able to, you know, help their kids in any way if there are kids involved. It's across the board, and people don't really think about financial abuse being all of those things.
And honestly, I kind of knew some of that because obviously in the role, for those who don't know, when you're in the banking field, a lot of times your customers can really be divulging a lot of information to you, especially when it comes to loans.
Yeah, because they have to tell you their whole story to get the loan.
Exactly.
Like, here's how I got into this mess, right?
Correct. Or
here's
they
why I need to refinance this, or
or they want to know, well, how can I, without them trying to tell you that they're being abused, or we're getting divorced, and you see so many of that where people are trying to separate themselves from their spouse without their spouse knowing, and it just a lot of legal stuff goes into it.
Yeah, it does.
And you're not a lawyer, so you don't know
exactly
what, and it took me years to really get comfortable having those conversations. And hearing you, just give very detailed specifics on what that can look like, I think is huge, because a lot of times, a lot of people go through it, but it's not something that's talked about to the masses.
And here's the thing, they go through it and they think, this is just a shitty person that I'm with, right? Or this person is kind of mean to me. No, it's actually abuse.
Right.
So let's talk about that too, right? So as a trauma-informed coach that deals with narcissistic abuse, what I'm mostly dealing with are really high conflict, toxic relationships with people. And usually one of the components that comes into play is the financial abuse piece, right? So you're being verbally abused, sometimes physically abused, but then this underlying financial abuse thing that's quiet and nobody likes to talk about is going on as well.
Right.
And when you're in those situations, you're just like, how am I going to get out of this? Like, I'm kind of stuck with this person. I'm stuck in this relationship. I don't really know how I can make my own money and get out of this. And so a lot of people stay in those relationships way too long because they don't know how to get out.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of dependent on that person 100% for money and, so, food and a house over their head, a roof over their head,
Right. And honestly, a lot of times and again, I've never been a victim, so I would never want to come from that perspective that I, know what they're thinking or feeling. But a lot of times, I guess what I'll say is when I hear victims speak, they mention exactly what you just said. And then they also say, you know what? I'm afraid to go to the police or do whatever else because they start thinking about the consequences that not necessarily, on them, but how much are they willing to go through everything that's going to come along with, so.
And it keeps you stuck in relationships that you don't want to be in for much longer than you really should be in them for.
Right. Now, is there any, before we get to, because I know we're identifying the problem right now, is there any statistics or numbers that I'm sure you have, but
I don't know anything off of the top of my head, but I do know that most of the time, if you're in an abusive relationship, whether it's verbally, physically, or emotionally abusive, that quite oftentimes that financial abuse piece will also be present.
Gotcha.
They often go hand in hand.
Right.
So if you're being verbally abused by somebody, then there can be some financial abuse as well.
Gotcha.
Even if it's limited, like, I'm going to go out to dinner with all of my friends as many times as I want, but you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Stupid little things like that just feel like, this person's kind of controlling. No, actually, that's financial abuse.
Yeah.
Right? So you get to spend your money the way that you want to, but I get to be told how I get to spend the money that I have.
Right.
That's not cool.
Yeah. And what makes me think of that is, so me and my wife, 2.5 years married, shout out to my wife, Gloria. We had open and honest conversations about our finances, and we still do to this day.
It's important.
And we recently did an episode around Valentine's Day, just saying budgeting
I
while
saw
married.
That. Yeah, I loved it. And it's true. It's one of those things that, you should have a conversation with. If you're in a partnership of any kind, whether it's dating or engaged or married, money is a huge part of that. If you're not on the same page,
right. And before you enter in that agreement, yep,
exactly,
yep. So with that being said, what are some of the things or tips that you? Because I know you do. Correct me if I'm wrong. You do a camp, correct?
Yeah, I do a retreat. I do twice a year. Yep.
Okay.
One of them is about codependency recovery.
Okay.
So if you know that you've been like people pleasing and like saying yes when you really want to say no, and you're like walking around on eggshells around people, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know how to get over that.
Right.
One of the retreats that we do is called Codependency No More.
Okay.
I do that with an amazing coach named Jess Parente.
Yes. Shout out to Jess.
Yeah, hi Jess. She's a psych nurse and also a coach as well.
Okay.
Actually, she and I met in a brain spotting class. We'll talk about brain spotting in a minute.
Gotcha.
So we do that once a year, and then every year in the fall, I do a second retreat with a licensed therapist named Angela Failer, who is also a business owner and does Eden Energy medicine work. Wow. She is an incredible person. That retreat's called Resilient Soul, and that's really about anyone who's been through any type of an abusive relationship, and they just want some tips and tricks to like heal from that. Somatically, so we kind of stumbled over that word at the beginning. It's a strange word, but somatically just means that trauma is stuck in your body.
Gotcha.
And so like our cortisol levels will increase, and our body will respond in different ways automatically when something triggers us from something that's been said or done in the past. So when we're talking about somatic trauma therapy, what we're talking about is releasing that hold that it has on your body, so that, you know, if you see that person or you hear that person's voice or you're in a situation that reminds you of something, your body's not automatically freaking out again.
When you said it, that's what I was thinking of, like something triggers you in your body.
So you're like, okay, I see that person has no hold over me anymore. Like, I'm good. Yeah, I get it. I see where they are and who they are, and my little 2-foot circle is pretty safe right here. So yeah, those 2 retreats twice a year. An amazing place for women to come and kind of heal from all of that. Working on next year having a men's retreat. Running that with a former state trooper, and hopefully going to be doing some work around things that have been traumatic in men's lives as well. Because like I said, there are a lot of men out there who have been abused too.
So, no, actually, I love that, because that's where I kind of want to go. We're coming up on Father's Day in June. And what do you, because I imagine, just based on societal norms, where men have to be, have a stigma around them that they have to be a certain way.
Yeah, they're not allowed to cry. Put on a brave face. No.
So I would say, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around like a parade of men raising their hands saying, yes, I've been abused. So like, how do we start to weed out those individuals who may feel embarrassed, or their egos involved, or, you know, whatever they're feeling, to, you know, make them stand up and say, I've been abused.
It's a hard thing to say.
It's a hard, me visualizing it.
I know.
It's hard for me.
So for a guy, like having a safe person, somebody who's not going to judge, somebody who's trained in how to deal with these traumatic things, right? So a therapist or a trauma-informed coach, either one, and they have both different roles. But having somebody that you can go to, that you can say, hey, this is what's happening to me, and really understand through that process that it isn't your fault. It's not happening because of you. It's happening to you. And realizing that if there's nothing that you said or did that provoked that encouraged that, you know, attracted that, perhaps a little bit in the codependency side of things, but you know, understanding that men get abused too, and I think it's becoming a little bit more of the norm of a conversation now about the fact that there are a lot of abusive women out there as well, and there are many,
some issues they may have,
and there are many abusive women who financially abuse their husbands too, like racking up credit cards and buying whatever they want and buying the latest car. And
now that I've heard a lot about.
Absolutely. And then the man's like, what the hell just happened?
Like, he's out there working,
busting his butt, and she's spending all the money.
No care in the world on how it impacts him.
Not at all. You know, so I think, to answer your question, you know, being vulnerable enough with somebody who's safe. And a therapist or a trauma-informed coach is a great place to start. And there's no shame, and there's no, you know, it's a normal part of life. You know, people are mean sometimes. And we need people to help us through that.
No, and honestly, I spent this entire month. So for those who don't know, I participate in something called Wealth Wednesdays, where we've been using mental health professionals come into the Nobleman Cigar Lounge in Penn Hills, to basically try to make it a normal conversation, that therapy is not necessarily for people who've been traumatized.
Correct. It's for everybody.
It has me thinking about me and my wife just getting therapy, just because
life.
not that we don't have a great relationship and able to tell each other anything. We do, but just having another perspective about if there's something I'm not doing that she wants, or vice versa. And I'm so grateful and pleased that I've been able to absorb all this information I've gotten this month, because it's helped me have a new perspective.
Absolutely.
And I want more people in our community to start realizing it's a healthy thing to do, to just have a therapist, even if you think you have a great life.
It is. You know what? If you had a pain in your knee, you'd go to the doctor. Right?
Yep.
If you have a pain in your heart, that's all it is.
Right.
If something is bothering you emotionally, mentally, and you're like stressed out or you're anxious all the time, it's usually your body going, hey, I need some help over here. Right? So go see a therapist. There should not be any stigma attached to that.
Yeah.
I think it's getting better.
Yeah, I just want to be a part of the narrative of changing that stigma.
Exactly.
I've learned so much.
It's quite okay. And, to your point, you don't have to be in a crappy marriage to go see a therapist.
Right.
In
fact, I have a great marriage, honestly.
I was going to say, it'll just make your marriage even better.
Right.
Because you've got that person in the middle kind of giving you a different perspective. And you're like, oh, I never thought about it like that.
Right.
Right. And when you're in it and the two of you are like in it, it's really hard to see.
Yep.
But if you've got somebody looking at it from this angle or this angle, then, okay, I see this better now.
Yeah. And honestly, we've been mapping out a game plan, because either we'll lean in more towards couples therapy, just to have some talking points of what are, and I try to be, many who know me, I'm very transparent.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's some things that we love about our marriage and there's things we don't.
Yeah.
And we want to, talk about them both and see what comes from that.
Do more of one and figure out how to decrease the other, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's get into, I think you said it's called spotting or brain spotting.
Brain spotting.
So,
yes. So it is a type of somatic kind of therapy, if you will, that uses a pointer to locate a spot that your brain connects, your eyes connect your brain to whatever it is that is bothering you.
Okay.
So if you and I were brain spotting right now, I would have a pointer and I would literally find with your eye spot where it would need to stop.
Okay.
And then we would hold that point for a while and you would just process for a while somatically. Right. You'll feel your body like, I don't like this feeling. This feels kind of strange.
Right.
Or it might just feel really nice. We do bilateral music while you're going through the brain spotting.
Okay.
And what the brain does is it kind of pulls up that issue, whatever that might be, whether it's a traumatic event that occurred or something that happened. Maybe you and your wife had a fight that day and you're just like, I need to kind of figure this out. And every time, we talk about the thing that we were fighting about, my body feels it again.
Yeah.
And what your brain does is it starts to process that traumatic event so that it can timestamp it into the past and say, okay, that happened, but it doesn't need to affect me anymore.
Right.
Right. So let's just say we were arguing about a car payment, right? Every month this payment's due, it's $500. You need to sell this car, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's just like continual every time. So if you come and you do brain spotting about that thing, for instance, you could be talking about that financial issue.
Right.
And going through brain spotting, and your brain will process it. It will understand logically that you know what you need to do.
Right.
It won't impact your body every time you think about that payment every month. Right. And you'll be able to kind of timestamp that triggering reaction to that fight that you had into the past, so that the next time you can approach that subject, you're not raw, you're not on emotions, you're not like triggering each other by the things that you're saying. Right. You're able to kind of step back a little bit and say, okay, well, we've tried it that way. That didn't work. So what are our options? Could we sell the car? Could we trade the car in? Could we look at, and you come at it at a much more, excuse me, logical way. Right. And I'm using obviously a really silly example, but there are some things that, brain spotting actually works for money problems too.
Right.
So, it's a great modality that is used. It really allows your subconscious brain to kind of tap into the stuff that we don't necessarily think about cognitively on a daily basis.
Right.
and allows you to kind of go, oh, and the cool thing is with brain spotting too, is oftentimes you can connect the issue to something else that's much bigger that may have gone on before.
Right.
And you're like, oh, now I see why I'm getting triggered by this because that happened. And then, you kind of reveal these layers as time goes on to get to the point where you process all of those things and you're like, okay, I'm good.
See, and what I love about everything you just said, I know for a fact people out there aren't doing that on their own.
Of course.
So, and you're not cognizant of that's what's going on.
Not at all.
So why not have a coach or a therapist or a professional help you come to that realization, because you're not doing it on your own.
Yep.
I know I wouldn't be able to. Yep. And so I love that. My next question for you was, what exactly, in your experience, have you seen that trips, let's go for women example, that trips them up from, let's say they're in an abusive relationship and then they're also having that financial abuse, like they're getting everything.
Yeah.
What are like some of the most common things that keep them from taking steps?
Sure. If there are kids involved, then that woman is always going to put those kids first, and she's going to put up with the abuse because she thinks it's better for the kids to have two people, or that person perhaps is like literally keeping them alive with food and with a roof over their head and etc. You and I both know that Pittsburgh is an incredible community of nonprofits. Sister's Place, Dress for Success, Treasure House Fashions. There are many different organizations that can help you with practical stuff like clothes and food and a roof over your head. There are women's shelters.
Right.
There are many different nonprofits here. There is help if you really want to get out.
Right. And I love that because so I have real quick, I'm not an expert by any means, but I always want to do some of my own little research just to make sure that, as I start to talk to people and I realize this issue is so important. So now I'm going to be an advocate and a mouthpiece. So I just looked up financial abuse, and they have 7 different things that you can start to strategize and implement in your life to start to try to leave a bad situation. And I just want to read them real quick. Details to consider is to have a plan for financial abuse, opening a separate bank account,
always
start saving, make a budget, make a plan to tackle credit card debt, local food banks, government assistance, and domestic abuse coalitions. And a lot of what you just said about the resources and all those phenomenal organizations that are out there is, it's really to the point where you just have to cognitively start to think, what, I'm ready to be done, but let me get a therapist. Let me get prepared, get a therapist, but also start putting women in a better position to where they don't have to take it anymore.
Correct.
And, and I'm not saying that's easy to get to that point.
It's hard. It's really hard. It is really, really, really hard.
Right.
So financial abuse recovery starts with, number one, accepting that you're being abused and truly understanding it for what it is. That's a hard one to swallow.
Yeah.
I from my personal experience, this middle class white woman living in a nice neighborhood, and no one's knowing what's going on behind closed doors, right? Yep. And now I have to say, oh my God, like this is really what's happening here.
Right.
I was in banking at the time too.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I'm never going to get out of this debt. Like this is never going to get any better.
Right.
And so like admitting that that's the problem.
Right.
Then, I got a therapist. I started talking about it. I started realizing exactly what was going on in my world.
Right.
And I would do small things. I would go to the grocery store and I would get $20 cash back with my card. But it would show up as a $90 order instead of a $70 order, right? That $20 went in my pocket. And over time, I had enough money that I could then save to put a down payment on an apartment so that I could leave, right? Yeah. That's how I did it.
Right.
I started really racking down the credit card debt.
Right.
As much money as I could put on it from wherever, garage sales, selling stuff on Craigslist at the time, but you can use Facebook Marketplace now.
Right.
There are many different things you can do to find money from somewhere in order to be able to move on and get out of that.
Right.
But, like you had mentioned in here, just having a plan, knowing what your credit score is, making sure that you pull your credit report and take a look at the debt that's in your name. Annualcreditreport.com for free. Don't ever pay for it.
Yes.
You don't need to necessarily know your score, but you do need to know what's in your name.
Correct.
Because if that person's truly financially abusing you, they could have gone ahead and opened up a whole bunch of accounts in your name. And if you leave, you're still responsible for those debts, even though that other person racked them up.
Yes.
So knowledge is power.
Right. No, and honestly, I'm appreciative of you for being comfortable, and obviously you do this work, so you sharing your personal experiences, that who knows how many people are able to drop their guard now, especially when they come to you, because they know you're speaking from experience and you're speaking from a place that they can relate to. So you know what they've been through. And a lot of times, no matter what the topic is, if someone feels you're not authentic and transparent, they're not probably willing to.
They're not going to share with you. How do you understand what I'm going through? You've never dealt with this. Oh, well, let me tell you, have.
For sure. For sure.
Yep.
I love that. I was wondering, what exactly does, when you do your, I don't want to say the wrong word again, retreats. What does that look like as far as getting the number of people to be involved? Is it them reaching out to you on a website, or is it them calling you, or like, how do you go about, or do you partner with other organizations, and like, how do you go about finding these people who really need your help?
So I have a free Facebook group.
Okay.
So you can obviously join that. If you go to Impart Clarity on Facebook, you'll see my main page, and then from there it'll show you the different groups that you can get into.
Gotcha.
Narcissistic abuse recovery is one of them.
Right.
And then there's another one, Impart Clarity on Your Life. I post all the stuff about the retreats in there. The retreats are always on my website, so impartclarity.com. And basically how I get the word out is I talk about it a lot on Facebook.
Yes.
I have a lot of different networking events that I go to, different circles of people like yourself.
I'm actually kicking myself because I've known what you've done. I just didn't have a better understanding until this month is really when I was like, oh, you know what? And I've started to hear personal testimonies, and it's really opened my eyes to how significant. So now I'm going to be sharing a lot more. You know? So, because it takes something like, it takes those relationships to really change your perspective. And early on, I just didn't have that. I'm like, oh, there's Tanya doing amazing things, but I didn't really know.
Like, what is she doing exactly?
Right, exactly. So I'm just so grateful that you're sharing that, because it's opened my eyes, and hopefully it's opened others who are watching. Because it's so important.
So with the coaching that I do, I have near and far. So near is narcissistic and emotional abuse recovery.
I love that.
And far is financial abuse recovery. So both of those, right? And I make the financial abuse recovery coaching so affordable and in a payment plan, so that you get a budget, you get a plan, you get an exit plan, you get to figure out how to get the hell out of this shitty relationship that you don't want to be in anymore. You get to figure out how to take your power back, how to take control of your situation, and how you can move on. And, there are many different places in Pittsburgh, and Bankworks has been another great vehicle for me, honestly. I've sent people to that program with Miss Carmen now teaching.
Shout out to Carmen.
Miss Carmen's the best. But you know what? Even just getting into a career like banking, that you have a 401k, you can start saving for retirement. Life isn't so scary anymore.
And you taught me this, and I love that and that's kind of why I want to emphasize your background in banking, because the first thing you learn about in banking, and you taught me this, is your transferable skills. And one of the biggest things in banking is protecting, and you learned this day one, protecting the customers and members' privacy. So the fact that you know that all too well, better than most.
Very well.
So when people come to you, they know they can divulge and say everything, and they know it's going to be safeguarded to the T. So
it is always. I would never share who's a client. I would never. Well, sometimes my clients are like on Facebook blasting, "Oh my God, I love you. This has been awesome," and I'm like, "Okay, so now you busted yourself."
Right.
But I would never share that with anybody who I work with. And I've had some pretty high profile people here in Pittsburgh that I've worked with that have ranted and raved about the work that I've done with them. And you're right, 100% confidential.
And I love that, because a lot of times, you want to, like, I know I always want to give you your flowers. But the work you do is so important, and I know you don't do it for any exposure to that degree or any money or anything like that. You do it because you genuinely recognize the problem that's going on. And let's be honest, I'm avid on social media. I don't hear anyone really talking about it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so important. Why aren't we
talking about it?
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot more prevalent than you realize.
Right. And for me, only thing I can even reference is movies.
Yeah.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
Stuff like, you know, but that's purely entertainment. You don't really realize that people go through these. It's based off real world and real life scenarios. So
a lot of people just don't like to talk about money. It's, in banking, it's kind of a taboo thing. I remember every time I'm training in Bankworks and I'm talking about, well, you're going to ask them about, what other accounts do you have at other banks? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can't possibly ask anybody anything about that.
Right.
You can. But the thing is, as a society, we don't really talk about money.
Right.
And when you're talking about the fact that somebody is abusing you by controlling money,
right,
that's a whole different situation. Girlfriends might tell girlfriends if they're real close,
right,
but outside of that, it just doesn't get talked about.
Right. I wanted to ask you about gaslighting.
Yeah.
So I did my own little research, but I'd rather hear it from your perspective, or just letting people know what that is who don't.
Yeah. All right. So gaslighting, is such a thrown around word right now, but basically the easiest way to explain it is if somebody says something mean, negative, derogatory, or horrible to you,
right,
you call them on it and they either deny it or they turn it around on you and make you to be the problem, not them. Or they will say, that isn't what I said. Or worse yet, they'll say, I was just joking. Right. All of those are forms of gaslighting. And basically it is a form of abuse.
Yes.
You are not being treated with love, kindness, and respect.
Right.
And you are being gaslit. And what happens over time when somebody does that for a really long time is you start to question your reality.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like you're going insane.
Right.
Because you are.
Right.
Because, hey, hold on a minute, you just said that. I didn't say that. Yeah, you did. Yeah. If you find yourself recording conversations between you and your partner or your spouse, that's a pretty good sign that you're being gaslit.
Right. No, and honestly, I'm very transparent. I think I have relationships like that where literally I don't remember, like, we never get to a point to where we're really talking about the issue. It's always a lot of what you just described.
Yep.
So yeah, I gotta if you experience what she just said, you definitely need to think about some things. Because I'm saying everything. I'm like, I've experienced some of that. So yeah, that's huge.
It's a pretty typical way for somebody who has narcissistic tendencies to deflect back onto you.
Right.
Like, I want to just take this away from me. This isn't my fault. This is your fault. And I'm just going to say I either deny that I said it, or you didn't hear me right, or I was just kidding.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah.
All of those things. Check. Abuse.
So once we get people into the retreat, what does that what did they experience after they've completed? They do both, correct?
Yeah, well, they can. You can come to either or you can come to both if you want.
Okay.
But typically the retreats are like a long weekend, so Friday through Sunday, twice a year. And then if they want to, they can continue coaching with me.
Gotcha.
I have different resources for different people around the city that I will refer out to as well.
Right.
Depending on what's going on in your situation, I might refer you to a different therapist because I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach.
Right.
And sometimes you need that additional cognitive behavioral type therapy that I can't give you.
Gotcha.
What I give you is practical steps. I give you spreadsheets. I give you how to set up a budget.
You're amazing at that stuff.
So, right? Like all the banking stuff, like the practical hands-on help is where I'm giving you.
Right.
But a therapist would give you the help for your emotional stuff and the things that are really like playing on your mind, and also be able to kind of teach you how to respond to those situations in a better way too.
No, I love that because as you know, as you were talking, I went back to a time when I completed Bankworks, and there was a time in my banking career very early on where I had doubts about whether I could do it, and I called you.
I remember that conversation. Like, you've got this, Tyler.
Right, and it was just, and I don't want to tear up, but it was just that brief conversation, and 4 or 5 years later, it's
And sometimes you just need somebody to believe in you until you can believe in yourself.
Right, and I'm a very confident person.
Truthfully, that's what a coach does. It's like, I saw in you what I knew was going to happen the day that we met.
Right.
And I just held that vision for you to see for yourself.
Right.
Until you got to do that.
Right. Because I had doubts, and I'm usually not. I rarely doubt myself. So.
I know, but sometimes when life comes at us, you're like, can I do this? You know, and when you're in a really bad situation and you want to get out, but you don't see the wood for the trees, and you feel stuck. Yeah. You gotta know you're not stuck. Right. You're not stuck. There's always, Mr. Rogers says, there's always a helper. Look for the helpers.
Yes.
Right? He was right.
Oh, yeah. So we've identified the problem. Mm-hmm. We've talked about how you go about the solution. We've definitely talked about after the retreats, how you still have your hands on with individuals, because the trauma and everything we're talking about, there's no statute of limitation on how long it can last.
Correct.
It could be your entire life. It could be, but just knowing that you have the resources now that you can tap into, I think will really help to push the narrative forward as we start to, combat something that's been going on for generations and generations and generations. So,
and that's a good point too. So generational trauma can also be a big part of this too. So if you saw your parent, your mom, let's just stay with women because it's easier for the narrative. Right. If you saw your mom being financially abused by your dad and you go into a relationship and someone's financially abusing you, well, that's the norm, right? Because you've seen it modeled for you. Right. It is not the norm. It can end right here with you. Yes. You don't have to continue that on for your daughter and her daughter. And generational trauma can be stopped.
Right.
It just means you being the one to break the cycle. And anytime you do something hard and you're the first one, it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah, and honestly, that's another thing I've learned recently is, when I do financial literacy workshops, it's talking about the early exposure to money and your relationship with money.
Your money story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
And I didn't, at first, when I started my journey with doing it, I didn't really think about that because I didn't, and I didn't use it myself as a testimony. I didn't have a great relationship with money. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really, it took a lot of people, mentors and people I look up to start giving me that perspective. Because now I'm like, I need to incorporate that because that's huge.
It is.
So similar to what you're saying.
You might grow up hearing money doesn't grow on trees or,
all that.
All of that, right? Oh, what do you think I am, made of money? Like you hear all of those things, but what it does is it goes into that brain and you're like, money doesn't grow on trees. Yep. And if you're running around saying I'm broke all the time, I got no money, whatever you say to yourself, guess what? That's what's going to happen for your world. Right. Like that is the world you're bringing in. Right. If you say things like, hey, I'm getting out of debt. Hey, I'm working towards being financially secure. Right. I'm moving in the better direction. And even if you only save $5 here and there, but you're continually making that a habit, right? Eventually you're like, wow, I actually have some money saved. This is pretty cool.
Right.
Money is just a tool. It's not good. It's not bad. It is literally just a tool for you to be able to live your life.
Right.
And if you handle it well and you manage it well, then typically you'll end up with a slightly better life than if you mismanage it.
Right.
And then when we're talking about financial abuse, if you got to get out of that situation.
Right.
It's never going to change.
Right.
They don't change.
I love that. And it kind of brings to something as we start to wrap up. So I pay attention to my analytics, and I have a strong following with women between, say, 30 to 40 years old. And I want to say predominantly Black women because that's my target audience. Sure. So when they look at you and they hear things that you're saying, for those who may be in this situation, what is it about you that will be something they can grab towards to not? And obviously, I know we covered that you've been through your own trials and tribulations.
Absolutely.
But just obviously, for my demographic, you obviously don't look like them. And
what? Are you kidding me?
Right. But as someone who has a true affinity and love for you, just based on how how much you've done for my life. What can you, or what would you say to those individuals to, because I know what I'm saying about you, but what do you convey to individuals who, have that fear, that, that relatability factor?
Yep, absolutely. So, I don't look like you. I'm a middle-aged white woman with blonde hair, white hair, gray hair, however you want to look at it. No, I don't look like you, but here's what I do know. I've been where you are. Yes. I've gotten out of where you are. I've also, thank God, had the experience of being in banking and being able to have those tools and understand all of that. And teaching Bankworks for 5 years, dealing with so many single, mostly African-American women, right? I have mentored behind the scenes, and I don't even know the Bankworks knows what I've done, but I have helped people get out of this mess already. I've been doing this just behind the scenes, right? We do a thing in Bankworks where we pull credit reports, and I say, hey, if you ever want me to take a look at that and kind of help you figure out how to get your credit score up, I can help you with that. Even if that's the only reason you reach out to me, do that.
Right. And honestly, this goes without saying. This woman means so much to me. Trust me, if I didn't feel so confident and passionate about who she is, she would not be here.
I would not be sitting on this chair right
now. I love this woman to death, and it's really why I was so excited that you reached out and we were like, let's talk about this. And I
knew your target audience. Yes. This was intentional.
Oh, absolutely.
I have very little exposure.
Yes.
To being able to meet new 30 to 50-year-old African-American women, right? I have several friends that fit that demographic that I hang out with all the time, love them dearly.
Yes.
But I need to be able to share that this is something that is so important.
Yes.
And I'm really passionate about.
Yep.
And you know what?
And if nothing else, what it's done for me that I believe is so monumental is now I'm better educated, and I'm able to recognize that. And for those who know me, I'm not afraid to see something, identify. I might not know the full situation, but now recognize the signs of, they might be a part of financial abuse, because I've worked with so many of my clients and customers in banking who, they told me things and I didn't know it.
You're like, oh, red flag for me.
Right. Yeah. And at the time, sadly enough, I just didn't know it.
No.
And now that I do, I'm definitely, I'm going to be strategic about how I do it, because, they have to, I can only do so much.
Absolutely.
They have to be able to take that leap in those steps on their own. I can't, force them. But
you do your financial literacy classes at EICI.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping you and I from partnering together and doing a class for women who are in this situation.
Yes.
I will volunteer my time. That is how much I believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
So let's make it known that this is something that people should talk about and not be ashamed of and not be afraid of. And you can get help and you can get out of it.
Absolutely. So with that being said, I'm going to give you one last time just to make sure people can clearly understand how they can find you and get the resources and the help that they need. Because again, I'm so grateful that I now am better educated, and hopefully you are, because please, and I'm gonna make sure Tanya's information is in the description, so you can reach out to her on all platforms that she's a part of, because we really want people in the community, not just women, but men as well, to make sure that if this is your situation, you have the individual or the people and the resources and the organizations that can really help you change your situation. But unfortunately, it has to start with you wanting to help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to say, hey, this is happening.
Right.
I need help figuring out how to get out of this. And then once you do that, all bets are off.
Off to the race. Yeah. And she's tapped in, y'all. Trust me. I rarely go to places where there's people who don't know who she is. So I love that. And that, again, she's going to be very honest and transparent. She's really going to, everything she tells you and talks to you about is going to be to help you. I've known this woman for many years, and she, even to this day, she continues to support and, show me so much love. And, that's rare to find someone who's genuine. Not to say that those people don't exist, but genuinely, wants to see the best for you. And so I'm always appreciative.
You're very, very welcome. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So yeah, Facebook is the group.
Yep. Impart Clarity.
Impart Clarity. Make sure you get it right. We'll make sure we have the spelling correct. So with that being said, this is my guest, my special guest, Tanya Bashor. Please reach out to her, or you can reach out to me, Financial Literacy with TC, on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all platforms. Definitely tap in with us. And we are wrapping up May for Mental Health Awareness Month. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys learned a lot. I will see you next time, and we will definitely dive into another financial topic. Take care.
Thanks.
I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where.